Hey, welcome back. Just breezing through hour two of a Woman Wednesday edition of Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. We try to get as much of the women's perspective as we can on Women Wednesday, but we do have women every day, so don't send me your little hate notes, all you JOs out there. But you know what? Even when it's Woman Wednesday, when we get the whopper of the guy guests, we got to fit them in somewhere. And we got a great one today with all this breaking news about Roger Stone, and Stone had his sentence commuted, and that was Russian collusion. He was the middleman. Roger Stone, a great friend of mine, mentor of mine in many ways, was persecuted, not prosecuted. He was persecuted because he was a friend of Donald Trump's. He's an over-the-top, ubiquitous guy. He brings attention to himself. But at almost, 70 years old, the guy's never had a single crime alleged against him. But yet they were trying to send him to jail for 40 months. And the president is a loyal guy, and he doubles down on the people he loves. And obviously he knew that General Flynn and Roger Stone were unfairly persecuted for political reasons. But someone who knows a lot more about pardons and all of this stuff, a lot more than me, joins us right now. Mark Hyman is with us. He's the author of a tremendous book called Pardongate: How Bill and Hilary Clinton and Their Brothers Profited from Pardons. This is like a shocking expose of Clinton's pardons and commutations. There was a big big thing last week when Stone got the commutation. They were showing, only on Fox, of course, but they were showing how many pardons and commutations Obama did and Bush did, and they were like, Obama was in the thousands. Trump was at under 20. Tell us how Bill and Hillary, I call them the Clinton cartel. How did the Clinton cartel profit from all the pardons, including Mark Rich? And I know they sucked as much money as they could out of his former wife in fundraisers and stuff beforehand. But how did they profit otherwise?
Well, thanks for having me on, John. Look, executive clemency is government's official forgiveness for previous crime or crimes. And it runs a gamut. Some presidents are very generous, some are less so. And every so often there is a clemency decision, a pardon or a commutation that may have much of the public shaking their head. But when it comes to the totality of executive clemency, nothing comes close to what happened with the Clintons. Let me set it up for the audience. First of all, Bill Clinton was one of the stingiest presidents in all of history when it came to executive clemency. In his very first term, he gave away 54 executive clemency decisions. Only Thomas Jefferson, America's third president, when there were only 5 million people in the country, gave away fewer clemency decisions in his first term, 45. The U.S., during President Bill Clinton's first term, had nearly 300 million people. So he went from being really stingy, not only his first term, but his first 6 years, but he went from being the stingiest president to one of the most generous in his last 18 months. That all changed 2 weeks after Hillary Clinton announced that she was going to run for the U.S. Senate for the seat of the retiring Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. The very first of these really awful pardons and commutations was Bill Clinton went to 16 FALN terrorists who were in prison for very lengthy terms for things like blowing up buildings, killing people, bombing all over the cities, particularly in New York and Chicago in the 1970s. And he went to them and said, by the way, you have not even requested executive clemency, but I will give you commuted sentences. All you have to do is agree not to return to violence. So Why did Bill Clinton do that?
You don't want to know why? I'm going to give you, I didn't read your book yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But I can tell you this, we've had Joe Connor on our show many times. He's a contributor to The Hill. Joe Connor's father was one of the men who was blown up that day because he worked on Wall Street in France's Tavern, okay? And I know that Bill Clinton specifically went to let these people out of jail when Hillary was running for Senate because he was trying to garner favor with the Latin American vote. And it's pretty disgusting when you have a guy like Joe Connor, whose father was blown up, killed, taken from him when he was a kid, because he worked on Wall Street, and then you see a president actually using his power to do something like that, to let people out. And, Oscar Lopez didn't even take the clemency the first time. He didn't want it. He wanted to be like, the modern-day Mandela. But then ultimately Obama gave it to him anyway. And all these people come back to Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground and all this other crap. So it becomes a pretty tangled web, if you ask me.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Now, traditionally, Puerto Ricans, the Puerto Rican bloc in New York City, have tended to vote Democratic. And New York City politics is very balkanized. Remember, we talk about New York City because it's a big portion of the state's population is right there in the city. So their politics are very balkanized with different ethnic, religious, and social groups. And candidates have pandered to them in the past, but nobody has ever actually offered pardons. Now, let's set this up. Rudolph Giuliani was, at the time, the presumptive GOP nominee. In his last mayoral race, he received 43% of the Puerto Rican vote. He was very popular as Republican, and that was a huge voting bloc the Clintons wanted. So the way to defeat that was they would offer commutations to 16 FALN terrorists, 2 of whom had already been released, and as you mentioned, 2 chose not to accept it because they would not renounce violence. And then Bill gave them a month to think about it and released them. But that really started the ball rolling, because after that, the brothers joined in. That's Hugh and Tony Rodham, Hillary Clinton's brothers, who started hustling pardons on behalf of other people, earning hundreds of thousands of dollars to forward their interests, their requests, their desire for clemency to Bill Clinton. And Roger Clinton was part of that as well. All 3 of those men each individually earned hundreds of thousands of dollars. As a matter of fact, it had gotten so wild in the final months of Bill Clinton's presidency that Roger Clinton was cold calling clemency applicants, offering to get them pardons in return for money. 2 points to bring out of this. One, as one of the people who received the phone call said to me, how did Roger Clinton even know that I applied? It's not public information. It's private. And 2, how on earth did he get my private cell phone number? Well, clearly, either Bill gave that information to him or someone gave it to him at Bill's direction. But Roger Clinton was calling people on private cell phones saying, this is what it's going to cost to get you a pardon. It was that wild. It was that brazen. It was that out of control. And that was for the final year and a half or so of the Clinton presidency. These weren't just people who wanted to have a professional license restored, perhaps, who, after having led a good life, followed the law after they had been convicted and served their time and simply wanted to get back to their professional business. These were some really bad dudes. Harvey Weinig was the New York City-based money launderer for the Cali drug cartel. He got a commuted sentence because 2 of his closest friends were John Podesta and Harold Ickes, the chief of staff and deputy chief of staff of Bill Clinton. Carlos Vignali is a cocaine trafficking kingpin in L.A. He was caught shipping 800 pounds of cocaine to Minnesota. He got a commuted sentence because he paid Hugh Rodham over $200,000 to represent his interests. These were really bad people that got pardons and commutations.
It's quite amazing. I'm going to throw something out there. I don't know if you have been looking at it, but it seems like you're quite the investigative reporter. Did you know that Joe Biden's brother bought a big hunk of an island called Water Island in the Caribbean and Virgin Islands, 8 miles from Epstein Island? And then he subdivided this big hunk of land into 3 pieces, and he sold one of them to one of Joe Biden's former staffers who's a lobbyist for $150,000, the price he paid. And lo and behold, he has 2 free lots on a Caribbean island that some lobbyist paid for, basically.
I actually did not know that. That's the first I'd heard about that. Something probably worth taking a look at.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. And James Biden, Joe's brother, bought a big tract of land on this water island. It used to be a U.S. submarine base in the World War II for $150 large. He chopped it into 3 pieces and sold it to a lobbyist for $150. And there's 2 wonderful pieces of land sitting there, in my view, for James and Joe Biden to enjoy for free.
That's just amazing.
Presidents seem to, these Democratic presidents seem to do quite well by their brothers and family members, that's for sure. Mark, thank you so much. You got to go out there and check out Pardongate. If you were like me and you want to get even deeper into the whole Clinton cartel and how horrible they have been to America, check out Pardongate, how Bill and Hillary Clinton and their brothers profited from pardons. Thanks so much, brother. I really appreciate having you.
Thanks for having me on.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and WTF you like you've never been WTF'd before. Quick break, back after this.